The winter sun hung pale and distant over the quiet town of Bramble Ridge, its weak daylight doing little to soften the bitter cold that had clawed into the earth overnight. Frost coated the streets like shards of glass, and even the crows refused to fly. On that still morning, when the world seemed frozen in place, an elderly woman named Marjorie Nolan stepped out of her small brick home and unknowingly walked into a moment that would shake the entire town. For as she turned the corner near the abandoned mill road, her heart nearly stopped. Two massive figures lay slumped beside their motorcycles, motionless, covered in frost, and wearing the unmistakable leather insignia of the Hells Angels. If you believe in kindness, redemption, and second chances, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Mythora Tales. It truly supports the channel and helps us bring more heartfelt stories to you. The sight of the two frozen riders could have frightened anyone else. Their intimidating jackets, large boots, and tattooed hands suggested a life that most people steered far away from. But Marjorie was not most people. At 78, she had known grief, hardship, and loss deeper than many could fathom. She had lived through winters that took more than just warmth. They had taken her husband, her mobility for a time, and almost her will to keep going. So when she saw the two strangers lying helpless on the icy roadside, she did not run. Instead, she felt the old instinct inside her rise, the instinct to protect, to care, to act. Marjorie stepped toward them, her cane pressing into the snow as the frigid wind tugged at her long gray coat. Her breath came out in shaky clouds as she knelt, reaching out to check for signs of life. One rider, a tall, broad-shouldered man whose long reddish beard was frosted stiff, had shallow but steady breathing. The other, slightly younger looking with cropped black hair and a scar across his left eyebrow, seemed barely responsive. Both were dangerously cold, their hands numb, and their faces pale beneath the harsh daylight. For a brief moment, Marjorie felt the familiar ache in her knees and wondered how she could possibly help two grown men. But she pushed the thought aside. She had not survived everything she'd been through by giving up when things looked impossible. Her late husband, Arthur, had always told her that compassion was its own strength. That morning, those words seemed to echo louder than the winter wind. Slowly but determinedly, Marjorie tugged off her scarf and wrapped it around the younger rider's neck before making her way to the older one. It took nearly every bit of her remaining strength to help them sit up against the stone wall. She waved frantically at the lone delivery truck passing the intersection, and after several tries, the driver finally stopped. With his help, she managed to get the riders into the back of the truck and directed him to take them straight to her house because the hospital was an hour away, and the men needed warmth immediately. She would not risk waiting. When they arrived, Marjorie's small home, lit by the soft daytime glow bouncing off the snow outside, became an unexpected sanctuary. The fireplace crackled with a new flame, the heaters hummed, and blankets piled thicker than winter clouds were draped across the two unconscious men. The truck driver helped, and then left, shaking his head in amazement at the elderly woman who had taken in two intimidating strangers without hesitation. Word began to ripple through the town faster than the cold wind. Marjorie Nolan had rescued two Hells Angels riders from freezing to death. Inside, Marjorie worked tirelessly, brewing warm broth, rubbing their hands and arms to restore circulation, and checking their temperatures. She kept watch like a vigilant guardian, ignoring her own fatigue. Hours passed before the older rider, whose stitched jacket patch read Rook, began to blink awake. His eyes, a shade of gray, like storm clouds over the sea, softened when he saw the elderly woman hovering over him. The younger one, whose patch read Maddox, stirred next, confused by the warmth and the surprising gentleness around him. They did not speak, but the silence between them felt powerful, not awkward or tense, but weighted with disbelief. Men like them were used to being feared, avoided, or judged, yet here they were in a stranger's home, an elderly woman who had trusted instinct over reputation, humanity over fear. Marjorie checked their temperatures again and offered them warm water. As she moved around the room, her limp more noticeable now that the adrenaline had faded, the men watched her with a strange mix of respect and curiosity. They noticed the framed pictures on her wall, photos of a younger Marjorie with her husband, smiling beside a cabin in the mountains, portraits of a girl who must have been her daughter, faded certificates for community service. A life of quiet resilience seemed etched into every surface of her home. Hours later, when the sun rose higher and poured brighter daylight through the window, their strength had slowly begun to return. Rook and Maddox exchanged glances that carried years of unspoken experiences, brotherhood, and loyalty. They understood hardship, but the kind shown to them now was rare, almost unheard of. Something inside them shifted. Marjorie finally allowed herself to sit down after tending to them. She rubbed her aching hands and looked out at the snowy landscape. She told them her voice was not what it used to be, so she wouldn't speak much. Instead, she simply nodded toward the warm food she had prepared earlier. There was no expectation, no interrogation, no judgment, just a quiet offering from a woman who had lived long enough to know that everyone carried a story beneath the surface. Weeks passed and winter slowly loosened its grip on Bramble Ridge. One sunny afternoon, as Marjorie tended to the small flower pots on her porch, she heard the rumbling sound of motorcycles approaching. Her heart quickened. Two familiar figures appeared on the road, stopping right in front of her house. Rook and Maddox stepped off their bikes carrying fresh groceries, a thick wool blanket, and a wooden plaque carved with the words, "For the woman who saw us as more than our past." It was their way of returning not charity but connection, an unbreakable bond born from the coldest morning of their lives. Her reaction did indeed stun the town, but their return stunned it even more. She welcomed them with a warm smile and a gratitude deeper than words. The unlikely friendship that grew between them became a story everyone in Bramble Ridge knew, a testament to the fact that kindness could thaw even the frozen corners of a person's world. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of the goodness still present in people, please help this video reach more viewers by engaging. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to Mythora Tales to keep these powerful stories alive. Special request: comment "Kindness lives on" to let us know you're part of the Mythora family. And so, in the quiet town of Bramble Ridge, under the gentle daylight of a once harsh winter, an elderly woman's choice to help two strangers changed more than just their fate. It changed an entire community's belief in compassion, reminding everyone that warmth does not come from the weather, but from the heart.